Good morning, beta. Good morning, one and all. Now, today we will discuss chapter number 1. Okay? Tracing changes through a thousand years. Okay, beta? Okay. So now, the Indian history. The history of India can be divided into how many parts? In 3 parts. Yes, tell me answer. Rajat, the Indian history can be divided into 3 parts. Okay, so now first part, that is ancient, second medieval period, and third modern period. Okay, beta? Now it's clear, the history of India can be divided into how many parts? In 3 parts. कितने parts में बांटा? In 3 parts. First, ancient, medieval and modern period. Okay? Yes. Okay, beta. The medieval period. The medieval period lasted for about how many years ago? 1000 years ago. How many years ago? In 1000 years ago. During the medieval period, the Indian frontiers, both land and maritime, included many regions that are separated nation now. Okay? So, now you come to the page number 1. You can see here map 1 and map 2. Map 1 and map 2. Map 1 was made in 1154 century by the Arab geographer. Underline the point. By the Arab geographer Al-Idrisi. It's clear, beta? I mean that now map 1 was made in 1150 years ago by the Arab geographer Al-Idrisi. Yes? The section reproduced here is detail of the Indian subcontinent from his large map of the world. Okay. Now you come to the next. I mean that map 2. Map 2. So here map 2 was made in 1720s. Yes? How many years? In the 1720s. I mean that 1720s. Now, by a French cartographer. By a French cartographer. The two maps are quite different. Now here one more question. Now you can define. What do you mean by here now cartographer? Cartographer क्या है? Yes. Nitika, tell me answer. What do you mean by now here cartographer? Yes, very good answer beta. A person who makes map. Vidhan, very good and thank you so much beta. Now cartographer, it means now a person who makes maps are called cartographer. Okay. Yes. Now you come to the next line. The two maps are quite different. Even though they are of the same areas. Now you can see here in a literacy map. I mean that map 1. South India is where we would expect to find North India. And Sri Lanka is the island at the top. Place names are marked in Arabic and there are some well-known names like Kannauj in Uttar Pradesh. Yes? Okay, beta. Now, second point. Map 2 was made nearly 600 years ago. Okay? During which the time of informations about the subcontinent had changed. Now beta, this map was used by the European sailors and merchants. Now you can read in next chapter, I mean chapter number 6. Okay? Come to the next page number 3. Equally important is the fact that the science of the cartography different in two periods. When historians read documents, maps and text from the past, they had to be sensitive in which information about the past was produced. Clear? Okay. Yes, beta. Next, historical records exist in the variety of language which have changed over the years. Medieval Persian, for example, is different from modern Persian. The difference is not just ओके, कितना समय लगा होगा और क्या क्या चीजें उनको देखनी पड़ी होगी. सो नाउ लेट्स सी, टेक द टर्म, some examples. The geographic regions referred today the term Hindustan. Include only the areas of Punjab, Haryana and land between Ganga and Yamuna. Can you understand? Okay, so now you can see here page number 3, third paragraph. Take the term Hindustan. For example, today we understand it as India. The modern nation states. क्या है बेटा? The modern nation states. When the term was used in the 13th century by Miraj I-Siraj. By Miraj I-Siraj, a chronicler who wrote in Persian. He meant the areas of Punjab, Haryana, underline, and the lands between the Ganga and Yamuna. Okay? He used the term in the political sense for lands that were a part of domains of the Delhi Sultan. The areas include in this term shift with the exit of the Sultanate. But the early 16th century, Babur was used. Hindustan to be described the geographic, the fauna and the cultural of the inhabitants of the subcontinent. As we will see later in the chapter, this was somewhat similar to the way the 14th century poet Amir Khusro. In the 14th century, Amir Khusro used the word Hind, while the idea of geographical and cultural entry like India did exist. The term Hindustans did not carry the political and national meaning which we associate it today. Okay. Now once again you listen carefully. Now it is very important. Okay. The Hindustan. The term Hindustan, for example, today we understand it as India. Or you can say the modern nation states. Beta, underline the point. Modern nation states. When the term was used in the 13th century by the Miraj-i-Siraj, a chronicler who wrote in Persian. He meant the areas of Punjab, Haryana, and the land between Ganga and Yamuna. Is it? Next point, he used the term in political sense. For lands that were the part of the township with the Sultanate, domains of the Delhi Sultan in political sense. Okay, in the early 16th century, Babur used Hindustan to describe the geography, the fauna and culture of the inhabitants of the subcontinent. In the 14th century, poet Amir Khusro used word Hind, while the idea of geographical and cultural entry like India did exist. The term Hindustan did not carry the political and national. It means which we associate with it today. Yes, beta. Come to the next paragraph. Historians today have to be careful about the terms they use because they meant different things in the past. Now here, take for example, आपने सुना ही होगा, and write here question, what do you mean by foreigner? Purvi? Yes, beta, now you tell me answer. What do you mean by foreigner? It is used today to mean someone who is not an Indian. someone who is not an Indian. Okay? Some person who is not an Indian. Very good answer. In the medieval period, foreigner was stranger who appeared, say, in a given villages. Someone, underline the point, someone who was not a part of that society or culture. Yes, Raghav, very good answer. Any person who comes from other country. Yes, someone who was not a part of that society or culture. In Hindi, the term Pardesi might be used to describe such a person. In Persian, Ajnabi. You can say Pardesi or Ajnabi. Yes, beta? Okay. Come to the next side heading, historians and their sources. Historians and their sources. You know very well various sources of history of these periods. Can you tell me? Okay, so now here various sources of history of these periods are architecture, archaeological sources, inscriptions, very good answer, inscriptions, coin, yes, correct, literacy sources, and manuscripts, yes, Rajat. Okay, manuscripts and accounts by foreigner travelers. Yes, beta, now very good answer. So now here, what do you mean by manuscripts? What is manuscripts? Astha, what do you mean by now here manuscripts? Manuscripts were written by hand or specially prepared bark of the tree. Manuscripts were written by hand on palm leaf or specially prepared bark of the tree that is known as bridge. Now it's found in Himalaya. And now here inscriptions? What do you mean by now here inscriptions? Yes, beta. Inscriptions were written any hard surface. Can you give me some examples? Like metals? Yes. Correct answer. And roads. Yes, very good answer. Okay, beta. Now next sources. Literacy. What are the literacy sources? The literacy sources of this period threw a great deal of light on the history of this period. I mean, literature was the literature of this period was in handwritten things. We know already manuscripts and inscriptions. Okay. So now manuscripts were eaten away by the ancients, or now you can say someone destroyed. And printing press was not known in India. And now it was so difficult to preserve them. Okay. Now come to the next point, that is archives. What do you mean by here now archives? Can you tell me? Yes. Archives are places where documents and manuscripts are kept. You can underline this point. Yes, beta. There was no printing press in those days. So scribes copy manuscripts by hand. For example, now you can see here, if you had ever copied a friend's homework, you would know that this is not a simple task. Sometimes you cannot read your friend's handwriting, yes, and are forced to guess what is written. There are small but significant differences in your copy of your friend's work. Manuscript scoping is somewhat similar as scribes' manuscripts. They also introduce small changes, a word here, a sentence here. These small differences grew over centuries or copying until manuscripts of the same text they are become different one another. This is serious problem because we really find the original manuscripts of the author today. We are totally depend upon the copies made by later scribes. As a result, historians have to read different manuscripts versions of the same text to guess what the author had originally written. Yes, Palak? Yes, beta. Now you come to the next. The 14th century chronicler Ziauddin Baroni wrote his chronicle first in 1356. Underline the point. The 14th century chronicler named Ziauddin Baroni wrote his chronicle first in 1356 and another version 2 years later. The two differ from each other, but historians did not know about the first version until in the 1960s. It remained lost in large library collections. Okay? Now you come to the next last paragraph. The study of the 1,000 years between 700 to 1750 is a huge challenge to historians because of the scale and variety of developments during this period. In this period, new technology developed. New technology made their appearance, like the Persian wheel in irrigation. Second point, the spinning wheel in weaving. Third point, firearms in combat. Fourth, new foods arrived in the subcontinent, like underline potatoes, corn, chilies, tea and coffee. Tea and coffee. New technology and crops came along with people. Yes, as a result, this was a period of economic, underline the point, economic, political and cultural changes. Okay, beta? Okay, listen once again. Different movements in these periods are technology made their appearance. For example, like the Persian wheel in irrigation, the spinning wheel in weaving, and firearms in combat. New foods arrived in the subcontinent. For example, potatoes, corn, chilies, tea and coffee. Okay? Now, new technology, logic and crops came along with people who brought other ideas with them as well. As a result, this was a period of economic, political, social and cultural changes. You will learn about some of these changes in chapter number 5, 6 and 7. Clear? Yes. Come to the next paragraph. This was also the period of great mobility. Great mobility, it means people move from one place to another place. Okay? Okay, beta. Now time is over. Thank you so much. Okay.